Good evening, Eureka Whiskey Club members. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday night for the June edition of the Eureka Whiskey Club. It's crazy to think that next month will be a full year of the Whiskey Club membership. So if you've been with us that long, thank you so much. I think actually June is a full year for certain restaurants. So you may be saying, oh, it's already been a year, but I think we expanded the program to everybody back in July. So again, if you've been here for a full year, thank you very much. I know I've been teasing this, but we do have some cool stuff for those people that have been here since the beginning coming out soon. So I'm excited to announce that, but for now, we'll just have to keep it a secret. But welcome. I want to say welcome to our guest speaker this month, Doug Ward, who is the National Brand Ambassador for Whistle Pig, and have a really special whiskey to share with everyone tonight. And I know we're going to have a lot of questions and engagement from the crowd as normal. So thank you again for being here. And Doug, you want to give us a quick intro? Tell us a little bit about yourself and exactly what the National Brand Ambassador for Whistle Pig entails.
Yeah, sure. And, thank you all for joining. Trevor, thanks for having us, the Eureka group, for sponsoring and putting this on, and obviously selecting some cool juice for us to be able to talk about tonight. I won't bore you with all the backstory about me, but I will give you some of the uphill both ways, barefoot in the snow stories about how I got started with Whistle Pig. So I literally tried Whistle Pig for the first time in 2011 in Chicago, Illinois, when I was selling wine. I'm a certified somm. I came from that side of the business. And honestly, I ended up traveling around and being in wine bars all day and night. And then the craft cocktail scene started kicking off. And so I found myself in cocktail bars after the wine bars and really enjoying my time. And I tried Whistle Pig 10-year, because that's all we had at the time, in 11 at a distributor, basically portfolio tasting. And one of the guys came over, one of the reps said, you need to come try this. It was that and De Leon tequila, believe it or not, because they knew that I loved tequila and that I loved whiskey. And I tried the 10-year for the first time. And then from that point, every time I was in Chicago, I was like, why don't you bill me back 2 cases of that Shiraz, and I'm going to take these 2 bottles, okay? And I would go back and I would drink them, and I would take a couple bottles home because it wasn't available in Texas. That's where I live. And, one thing leads to another. I took a job with the umbrella company, Domain Select, that was doing wine and spirits. So I'd never sold spirits before. And honestly, I was selling stuff like Averna and Rum JM and The Bitter Truth and a lot of cool, fun stuff that are really, really incredible spirits. But I didn't have that thing that was like going to open the door. And so every time I got on the phone with our VP in Manhattan, I'd say, get me Whistle Pig, get me Whistle Pig. And then one day he called me, he goes, can you get me a PO? And I go, mm-hmm. And then one thing leads to another. In January 1 of 13, we launched in Texas. I started as steward of the brand, and literally drove across the country with my dog and my truck and lived on the farm for 6 weeks, and, kind of went to whiskey camp, right? And then came back. We switched distributors. I was off to the races and just banging down doors and bottles on the street, telling people about 10-year and telling people that proof delivered flavor and age statements matter and our mash bill is so unique and all the things, right? Because at the time, and all of you probably that are in this whiskey club know all those things, but honestly, 8-9 years ago, the education wasn't there for as many people. And so I had to pull a bottle of, a different whiskey off a back bar at a restaurant and be like, well, I'll pay for that, but pour that and then pour this and then turn your back and I'm going to show you which one you like, right? So, long story short, that's how it all began. I went from that to chief of sales of the Central, and then I went and launched Piggyback in California. Was one of the 7 states we launched in 19. And then I was in the midst of launching everything in the role of National Brand Ambassador in 19 and 20, and then everything stopped, right? And so I've joked that I'm the National Zoom Ambassador, but tonight I'm the National StreamYard Ambassador. And just been living vicariously through a lot of these virtual events. I've started obviously doing some in-person stuff, which is fun to juggle, but it's sometimes just as intimate and fun when people are relaxed at home and able to actually enjoy the experience and ask questions and not feel pressured like they're sitting at a table with people and don't want to raise their hand, right? So, right now, that's what the role looks like. It is going to get back to being on the road and being in front of bars and restaurants. And it really was the bartender community and the restaurant groups like Eureka that were where a lot of people tried Whistle Pig for the first time. And it really scared us a little bit when the pandemic hit because we didn't know where our brand recognition was, right?
Yeah.
And we're lucky to know that we're still, plugging along, doing fun things, pivoting. I normally have a bell that I ring when I say the word pivot, but I'll try to kind of keep that at a moderate level tonight. But we're a small, fun, nimble company that's still very youthful, and we don't have the marketing dollars to go do this and do that. We're just still being innovative and having fun and able to kind of do things that larger companies just aren't able to do. So it makes it really fun, and the juice that's in all the bottles that we're going to talk about and drink tonight and are in our portfolio are just some of the most decorated rye whiskeys on the planet.
That's great. I agree with you on the virtual. As much as I am looking forward to getting back to, California just reopened, just last week. So it's still new to us here, but I'm looking forward to getting out to a few of our restaurants and seeing our guests again, seeing our guests in person. We do have some exciting in-person plans for this club in the future. And I'm really excited about that. But what's your dog's name, by the way?
Romo.
Oh, okay. Got it.
The quarterback.
Got it.
Yeah, he's in the booth now, but he's still the name of my dog. It was a lot of fun back in the day, though, whenever you were able to call him Jessica when he had a bad game. But he's a pit bull that's white with one blue eye, so it just kind of, the shoe fit.
Sounds like a good-looking pup. Yeah, and then I remember, I don't want to talk about too much, but speaking of sports, the first introduction I had to piggyback, Blaine from Whistle Pig got me a bottle of it, and I killed that bottle with my friend when the Dodgers got eliminated from the first round of the playoffs when they lost to the Nationals that year. And so I was like, this whiskey's great, and I'm going to drink all of it tonight because I wasn't in that great of a mood. But that's awesome to hear that your history with Whistle Pig and, starting from a passion with wine. We've talked to so many people in the whiskey industry, like a few of our past guests started in wine and made their way to whiskey. So it's always interesting to see that transition. But it makes sense. They're both very beautiful beverages and a lot of complexity. So I definitely see the tie-in. So can you tell us, now that we know a little bit more about you, can you kind of give us a brief history of the Whistle Pig brand in general? Where it started, where it is today.
Yeah, sure. So it really all began, Trevor, on in 2007 when our original founder bought a farm in Vermont. It was really kind of a keeping up with the Joneses, believe it or not. A friend of his had bought a farm and said, "Hey, man, the farm down the street's for sale." The last time we were in a little bit of a financial crisis, the market was tanking, right? And he looked out into this rye field on the farm and said, "I need to make this defunct dairy farm work," right? And, enter Dave Pickerel, right? There would be no Whistle Pig. There would be really, the rye category would not be where it's at without Dave. Let's be completely honest there. And he had been at Maker's Mark for 14 years. He had built that brand. He had taken them from 75,000 cases to 1.4 million. And he brought up rye whiskey in the middle of a board meeting in the late 90s and kind of got laughed out of the room, right? I don't think anybody's laughing anymore, but at the same time, they've stayed very strong with their brand and haven't released a rye. But he had never made rye before. And so when he left, he really went out to go every place that made rye whiskey. And his actual first time to make rye whiskey was at George Washington's distillery, right? And if you know enough about history, George Washington was the #1 distiller in his day, and all he did was make rye whiskey. So he actually made it by hand in 100-gallon batches. And as Dave used to say over and over, I've learned more from my mistakes than my successes. Well, he messed up a lot that week, right? And learned a lot about how to make rye, because it is the hardest grain to work with. It gets sticky, it foams over. There's a reason why it went underground, right?
Yeah.
And so when 2010 came around, they came together, and we bottled basically stuff that we had found and David found in Alberta, Canada. Okay. And what this would have been is basically flavoring whiskey, right? That would have gone into a Canadian Club or a Crown Royal at like a 2 or 5%. But instead, we took these and rescued these barrels, brought them to Vermont and finished them there, and then bottled them there and put an age statement on it and 100 proof on the label. And people thought we were crazy. I mean, absolutely thought we were crazy. So it was innovation out of the get-go. There was
how did Dave find the supplier?
He just traveled every place in the world that made rye whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
Said, let me in the door. I want to do this. I want to bring the rye category back, right? And I also want to create an ultra premium, a luxury rye category. Because if you remember 11 years ago, if you went to a liquor store or if you went to a back bar at a restaurant and you looked on the back, you did not see many ryes. I mean, you may have saw 3 ryes, 4 or 5 tops, right? So at the end of the day, there was really nothing in that, price point. There was nothing with that age statement. And so it was innovation from the get-go. And the cool, fun story is that, when you go out and you normally get wined and dined and go to a steak dinner because you're a new client, well, the guy that we bought our first barrels from took Dave to a pizza joint and stuck him with the bill. Like, didn't take him to a steakhouse. That's how literally crazy he was, and thought we were. Now you fast forward, and we can tie this in when we start talking about piggyback. But the reason we have piggyback and so many other whiskeys in the portfolio is because of successive tenure, first and foremost. But the other thing is that guy that stuck him with the bill at the pizza joint is our CEO now. So he doesn't think we're as crazy as he thought in 2009. So
yeah. Well, now he gets stuck with all the bills. As a CEO.
Every one of them. Every one. Yeah. So, but that was a great tie-in when I got to go with the team to Alberta in 2018 to develop Piggyback. Is that we were walking through with all of Jeff's ex-coworkers and developing all this, and basically that's the reason why a brand our size has the ability to have something like Piggyback in the portfolio. And I know that doesn't fully answer the question of where we've come from and where we're going, but very much so, Dave's dream was Piggyback, right? To be fully honest, tenure, it was what brought us to the dance, okay? And without that success, there would be no 12 and 15 and 18 and Boss Hogs and farm stocks or any of it. But more importantly, Dave's dream was really to have a everyday workable, versatile, fun, perfect for cocktails, perfect for sipping, perfect for beer and a shot type of whiskey that was age statement, 100% rye and at high proof.
That's cool. I mean, so Dave unfortunately passed away in 2019. 18. So he unfortunately never got to see Piggyback come to fruition, but obviously I know he'd be proud of it. I had the pleasure of hearing him speak a few times at Tales and a couple other things, and just his passion for whiskey and rye whiskey and just the history of whiskey. He was on a panel of a class I took at Tales one year where I got to try like old Overholt from from the early 1900s and or something like that. And then there was like he did a counterfeit whiskey that was like raisin juice and like let everyone smell the bottle that he had. So he obviously was a big collector and a big, he respected whiskey and that was always relevant. So can you tell us a little bit like about your personal experience with Dave? You credit him as one of your mentors in the industry. And just tell us a little bit about your relationship and just obviously the fact that his passion for rye whiskey, but what other impact do you think he had on the whiskey industry before his unfortunate passing?
I don't know where to begin, to be
really
honest. He's the reason that I'm where I'm at in my career. He's the reason why Whistlepig's where it is, and in the rye category is where it is. He did so many different things on a handshake. He was not into paperwork. If you met him for the first time, half the time he wasn't probably talking about whiskey. He was asking you about your family. You know what I mean? He was just a great man, and he had a heart of gold. And he lived every day to make those connections, to help people along. And, there's just so many Dave stories. I think I know of the exact, I was in charge of Tales of the Cocktail. That's why I have gray in my beard. You can't see it with the light right now, but there's a lot of it. And I think it's all from Tales. I blame it on my wife, but she's not here to defend herself. So I'll just blame it on Tales. Would your wife come to Tales with you? My wife always would come with me and then just buy the wristband, and she'd be like, I'm just going to go around drinking at all these bars all day. And then one time, let's be real. It's July in New Orleans, and you can come and jump on board. And I didn't go to a lot of stuff with wristbands, but we always had a house, and we'd rent out a house and entertain there. And most of my great Tales memories are, for better or for worse, right? Are probably of, bartenders in a pool diving for bottles of Boss Hog at 3 a.m, and Dave sitting over there in the corner and holding court and basically letting people taste, different finishes when he was developing 12-year, and, the different proofs of 15-year in Vermont oak, and letting people try that from all over the world, and until wee hours of the morning. The guy just had extra gears that, honestly, I have from time to time, but the guy he was made to go. And
you said you remember what I was talking about, like the counterfeit bottle or whatever he had.
It was Stitzel Weller seminar. It had something to do with that. I think David Allen was involved. If I could be completely wrong, but between that, San Antonio Cocktail Conference, which obviously we were part of, and Dave used to come down for a week and a half and work the Texas market in January every year with me. We used to run the triangle, as we call it in Texas. I know it's not a triangle in California, but Dallas and Houston and Austin, it's the triangle of all the major markets. And, the memories of Dave are forever embodied on the piggyback bottle. And I have a picture of him in my house that is always and forever going to be there. And it's just so he actually passed about 6 weeks before my wedding. And so it was
sorry to hear
that picture was sitting on the table, next to my grandfather that obviously wasn't there as well. So just a special man that touched so many lives, and he lives along in every one of these bottles, not only piggyback, but everything else that we do, because he touched every one of them.
Well, hopefully we can cheers to Dave when we start drinking here, or if you have something in front of you, we can do it now. Yeah. Cheers to Dave.
Cheers to Dave.
Well, thank you for sharing that, very personal information about your relationship with him. It really means a lot to me. So thank you. So you had mentioned that you went to kind of whiskey boot camp. You spent 6 months at the farm when you first started. Can you maybe tell me your first memory of the farm and maybe your favorite memory of being at the farm in Vermont?
Ooh, favorite memory is going to be tough because every time you're at the farm is pretty special. I'm not going to lie. First memory is whenever I showed up and I didn't even know if I was at the farm, right? Because there was no signage and it was just like one guest house that looks nothing like it does now. But I remember driving in, and it was the middle of winter, in my truck with my dog, and having my first pour and putting it on the bumper of my truck and taking a photo of it. And it was me and 3 other gentlemen that were all starting, and we were the first salespeople to be hired. The other people had been interns that turned into employees, right, from Middlebury, which is just up the road, which is a very, very prestigious college. And then they've all gone off to do other awesome, great things in their lives, and lots of grad schools and MBAs and whatnot. And the two that are remaining is me as the national brand ambassador, and Gregory Gotti, our VP. So, we're still alive and kicking. But the funny thing is that the guest house at the time was literally an apartment above a regular house. So there was 4 of us living in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath with a little kitchenette and my dog. And then below was Leo and his wife and his 4 children. And one was a newborn. So every morning we heard a for months on end. Blizzards that I'd never seen in Texas before, that covered literally my truck. I walked outside one day and couldn't even see it. So those are all the uphill, both ways barefoot stories. But the farm has changed so dramatically over the years. Believe it or not, I actually was there, not this Sunday on Father's Day, but I was there the Sunday before that, on vacation, and for one night only, to show my 9-month-old son where Daddy works. And I think that might be one of the top 3 favorite experiences, to be able to walk into the distillery and my wife being behind me taking photos and stand next to the still. And it's a magical, special place. I actually almost tear up every time I kind of cross over and I can see the farm and everything. It's I hope that you guys are able to get out there. I know it's not down the street.
Yeah, I've never been,
but it's an awesome experience, and everybody comes away just with a different perspective of our brand after being out there, because you're literally in the middle of nowhere. Your phone really doesn't work. You're on a farm. It's not like you're on the Bourbon Trail and it's like, oh, where are we going to the next distillery? It's like, no, you're here, man. This is where you're at. You might go to a cidery, you might go to a brewery, but you're on a farm in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I have to go. One of these, I have a 4-month-old son, so it travels a bit hard at the moment. But yeah, I'd love to get out there one day, and that's awesome to hear. Well, hopefully you'll be able to take your son back, when he's older, and can share some whiskey with him. But I'm sure that may happen sooner than allowed. But yeah, exactly.
I'm just going to sell you,
Yeah. 114 proof, right? Goes a long way. Anyway, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the whiskey. So I was telling Doug the whiskey that we selected. So the single barrel rye, the 10-year, 114.2 proof. So packs some punch. We did something that is maybe not super common that Whistle Pig does. Yeah, we blended some barrels in 4. I think I was sent probably 10 samples, and I actually have the original 4 barrel samples that were sent to me. Looks like the sample date was back in November. I think I probably got these in shortly after that, or in January maybe. But you were saying that it's not common for to kind of blend these 4 single barrels into one offering. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. I was explaining earlier, but I did a barrel training with all the stewards during the pandemic and last summer, and Gregory, who's our VP, runs the barrel program, and he gets all this back and forth about oh, I didn't know you could blend barrels, because we've done this from time to time when people can't decide. I'm like, if you want to take the 2, okay, you got to take both, but this is okay. If you want to do that, that's fine. And so I said that on the training, and he calls me, and we never really have words, and he just called me up and he's like, you can't tell people that they can do that. And I was like, okay, my bad. We had words, and we don't really have words. We talk almost every day. And so the uniqueness of literally having 4 of these barrels put together to make a flavor profile is super unique, super rad. And I don't think we've done that before for anybody. So I really, I can't hammer home enough how just one-off and unique this bottling is. This is, and I was reading your tasting notes on it with the maple and the pit smoke and the orange zest. And I'm like, man, that sounds absolutely incredible. And that wheelhouse that you hit of like 114.2 proof is just a really great area, right? I've had some that I've had at 102 proof that like have blown me away, but they've been very tannic, right? And then some of those, 118s, like I think it was what you said was the top end, man, just throws a ton of character and caramel and just drives. So what you did is basically a smaller version of what you get with our 10-year 100 proof, because we do take 50 barrels and make a flavor profile, right? So, but then we, take it down. Right. But what we're looking for is probably what you did in those 4 barrels. And I don't know this because we didn't talk about this, but think about it this way. 2 of those were probably very balanced whiskeys, right? At least one of them was a very balanced whiskey. And then you had some tannic, very, earthy notes and whatnot. And then you had the other that just really raced out of the gate, right? And then when you put all 4 of them together, you're like, man, that's lightning in a bottle, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do with our 10-year 100 proof consistently every day at the distillery when we're making our blends, right? It's not that the balanced whiskeys are boring. It's that the balanced whiskeys need to be included because they need to be the control. They meet that they're the base, right?
Yeah,
and then you add other components to make it what you want, right?
Yeah, no, I was super. I can't really. I was just super excited when the opportunity was presented to me, and the final product came out way better than what I would, my little, concoctions at home. But like you were saying, so the highest proof of the barrel out of the 4 barrels was 118 proof. And then the lowest was 112.3, and the other 2 were 117 and 115. So all come out to average out to 114.2. The question that we got asked a ton when we kind of announced that we were doing this for the June pick was, what is the age statement? What, even though it says 10-year, everyone knows, what is the real age statement? So I did not give anybody answers because I wanted to kind of, reveal it on here, the grand reveal. So we found out that it was around about 12 years was kind of the average between the 4 barrels that were blended together. It was about 12 years. So I think we had like an 11 and a half was the youngest, and almost a 13-year was the oldest. So it averaged out to about 12 years. But I guess, can you elaborate on that more? Like why, what's the rhyme or reason behind calling it a 10-year, but then maybe sometimes having the whiskey actually being older?
Well, first of all, we privately hold more whiskey than anyone on the planet outside of the MGPs and Albertas and everybody else that makes it, because of the age statements that we have, right? And the fact that we're still making juice out of 2 stills 24/7, 364, I always say, because I think we give people Christmas off. But there's always somebody that's got to go check it, and the fermenters almost every day. But at the end of the day, what you have on the label at 10-year, whether it's 10-year or a single barrel, is going to be the minimum age. And that's always going to be. And so when you look at a 12-year and 15-year and 18-year, there are
the lowest age statement
up above that, but the bottom is what's on the label, right? So
that's a legal requirement, right? That's TTD requires that,
yeah. And we would never go away from the 10-year label to just re-register every label as a this and a that. It's 10-year, it's a barrel, it's minimum 10.
Yeah.
And this is, you're just getting the plus. It's like when you order a steak and you want medium rare plus, right? You're getting a 12-year plus. That's what you got. Yeah. So we've had some last year. Well,
I don't know how I feel about the people that order their steaks that way, but
Not here to judge. I'm just using examples.
No, I know.
Well, it's better than saying medium minus, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Right. So,
go ahead.
No, it's just very unique that we have the amount of juice that we have, and also more importantly that we're able to kind of be playful. Like we knew last year that there was going to be less bars and restaurants buying barrels and no one going to the farm. And so a lot of this was going to be retail driven traffic and whiskey groups and individuals and people that I've been selling a lot of barrels to in the last year or so. And so we were able to climb the ladder a little bit and have a little fun, let some stuff loose. Right.
Yeah.
And why not? Right. Why not?
Yeah. This is a reminder, just if you do have questions for Doug or questions for me or just any question in general, please feel free. If you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, you can just type it in the comments and we can see it. We'll try to hit most of the questions toward the ends, but if I do see a question that is pertinent or relevant to what we're talking about at the moment, I do like to ask it, so I remember. So Pat Mercer asked, he said he thinks that blending single barrels is kind of the future for larger group picks, such as this club. But he was wondering, how can it be labeled as a single barrel if it's a blend of 4 different barrels, or is there just no label that says blend of 4 single barrels? So can you elaborate on that a little bit more for our members?
C or D, all the above, right? There's no label that says that. So we have the labels. They're approved by TTB. When you blend them together, they are single barrels, but a blend of single barrels, right? So they're a blend of straight rye. And so, that's kind of the legalities of it. We stay within the lanes. So there's no reason to kind of go. And if we try to do, like I said before, with label approvals, it would take years and months, and every one of them would, it would just delay everything, right? So at the end of the day, TTB doesn't have a problem when we're using multiple single barrels and labeling it as a single barrel, because it is. There are lots of words that can be used on labels that really don't have as much to do, but this is definitely just a blend of single barrel.
Yeah, at a certain point in whiskey history, words on labels meant nothing. It was all just marketing.
But why there was the Bonded Act of 1897, right? I mean, people were dying from whiskey, and so the federal government had to step in and say, like, all right, we're going to build some warehouses.
Yeah, exactly. So let's, if you haven't already, I'm assuming most of us have already poured the whiskey, the single barrel whiskey. So I'm going to talk about the tasting notes for the barrel pick, and then everyone should have got a couple piggybacks, 50 mLs in their basket. So Doug is going to talk about the piggyback. So again, single barrel blend of 4 different barrels, average about 12 years old. If you don't, I'm just giving my tasting notes off the sheet that we sent out. So the first thing that hits me on this was just I do get a lot of like pit smoke, like barbecue smoke. And then in the middle, I'm getting maple sweetness. And then towards the end, I'm getting the orange zest and the like a little bit of like fresh cut grass. But again, sorry I didn't say this. I normally say this before we start smelling and tasting, but please comment what you smell, what you taste in the comment section. And love to call it out. Love to see what our members think of the whiskey and see what they smell and taste like. Just so good. It's so good. Yeah. I get a ton of like red hot candy, like cinnamon candy. I still get that kind of little bit of that pit smoke kind of barbecue flavor, and then big caramel, obviously big rye spice, and a little bit of mint towards the end. And then the finish for me is just long and lingering, and that cinnamon characteristic just sticks around for me in the long run. But enjoy your bottle. Like Doug said, it's a very unique bottling of 10 year. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. And Doug, please if you can walk us through Piggyback, that would be great. I got to pour mine.
So piggyback off of the 10 year and your small batch blend, right? So think of all of those notes of those caramel and those real high notes, right? And think of that being a little bit more tame because of the age statement of it being 6 year, but it's still being 100% rye and 96.56 proof, right? So you should get a lot of that cinnamon, cardamom, zest notes, right? But it's going to spike up, right? It's going to have that floral component on the front. It's going to be a little softer on the nose because it's a little bit younger of a whiskey. But that 100% rye, man, it really is not. It's too hard to hide, right? So that's proof once again, delivering flavor, age statement being our game, and 100% rye mash bill. I mean, we were not going to do that. We were not going to not do that, right? That's what Piggyback and what this was for. Some fun little Easter eggs too. I know that you guys got those horrible little 50 ml bottles that are brand new, by the way. Those are brand new to the market. I have a full size bottle, but some Easter eggs on the bottle that are really fun to talk about, right? As we've talked about, and no, Dave wasn't here to actually see this actually come to fruition, right? So on the label, if you look at all the other labels, you'll notice the pig on the label is Winston Churchill as a pig, right? Well, I should just show him first, right? Winston Churchill as a pig. Top hat, bow tie. Used to be smoking. He quit before COVID. Good for him. Now, when you look at Piggyback, right? That's Dave as a pig. Dave always had his Stetson on, okay? So also when we were in New York and we were talking about the proof and we were finalizing everything, I literally brought up 90.56 because Dave was born in 56. And everybody was like, well, I don't know if the TTB would approve that. And I was like, well, can we just put it in and see if it happens? And they approved it. So the 96.56 proof is actually an homage to Dave's birth year, right? So on the neck here, you've got year of birth and year of death. And then also a nice little quote from Dave on the back about the Piggyback ride that you all deserved. You'll notice that you've still got the shoulders of, what a Whistle Pig bottle looks like, WP through the back, but it goes in your hand. It goes into a well. A pour spout goes on the top. All the things that I heard for years. Man, I wish it was a little bit cheaper. Man, I wish it went into a well. I wish a pour spout went into it. I wish it fit in my hand. Here you go.
There you go. Yeah, right there.
This is it. And not only to introduce you to our brand, but maybe it introduces you to 100% rye. Maybe it introduces you to age statement rye, because there's nothing on the shelf or on your back bar that offers this age, 100% rye, and this high of a proof. We're not going to beat everybody in price because we're still a private, small guy. But at the end of the day, this over delivers for the price point. So it's really, really exciting to see it out there and to see it continue to grow, and for people to find their way to, like I said, 100% rye, age statement rye, and Whistle Pig, because that's really what it was all about. It was always, if Dave had his way, 10 year would have been what Piggyback is, because that's really all he ever wanted, right? Yeah. 12 year is such a unique thing that I think that was really his stamp on the world, because American whiskey wasn't playing with different finishes. And I know we're talking about 12 year now, not Piggyback, but just that was the bottle when I got the phone call from our CEO that David passed, that I was trying to find the bottom of when my wife walked in the kitchen, right? And now you look on a shelf and you look at your back bar, and there's all different finishes of American whiskeys, and everybody's playing. Well, that was the first whiskey of its kind. So, Dave brought 10 year and to the table. Piggyback was always his dream, and then I think that 12 years really the tip of the spear for American rye to be finished in different casks and then blended together, because at the end of the day, there's really not anybody that's tried to replicate what we've done. Other people have done single finishes, and done this and that, but no one's played around, because it took Dave like it took us 3 years to develop that product.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, just for the price point, the accessibility, and the flavor profile is very approachable. Again, me and my buddy killed a full bottle the first time I had it when we were watching the Dodger game. So it definitely is a phenomenal product, and I really hope our members at home continue to revisit it and have a bottle for their home bars. And it's a great bourbon, or I'm sorry, great whiskey, great rye whiskey for old fashions. I prefer ryes in old fashioned. So if you do have your kits at home, the Whistle Pig maple cocktail syrup, everyone should have got 2. It kind of varied on which one you got. I have orange and ginger, and then Doug, what was the other flavor? Smoked, yeah. So I have the orange and the ginger one. For sake of time, because I do want to get to your questions, and I do have a few more questions for Doug. Go ahead and if you have this at home, you can go ahead and make it and follow the cocktail recipe. Really simple cocktail recipe. This month, it's literally just the 2 ounces of the Whistle Pig barrel, or the single barrel, or you can use the piggyback or whatever you want, and you just add this, stir it with ice, and drink it straight from that, or you can strain it over fresh ice, strain it over a large cube. I do have my ice ready to go, but like I said, I want to get to some more questions with Doug, and I want to get to questions from our audience as well. So please continue to ask questions. I see we do have a lot of questions here. Love the engagement. So go ahead and make your cocktail now while we continue to talk about Whistle Pig and some other things. So we have a cocktail on our menu called the Tipsy Pig Old Fashioned that uses the Whistle Pig 10-year. And we infuse that with bacon fat. So it's a fat washed Whistle Pig 10-year old fashioned. And then we also use which I've seen someone comment on in the section that said they love the maple syrup. Sorry, I can't remember who exactly said it. It's a little far up on the chat, but can you talk to us about the barrel aged maple syrup and kind of how that came about, and what barrels are used to age the syrup in? And you guys are in Vermont, so obviously it makes sense. So was that a passion? Was that a Dave thing, or was that someone else? Or you tell me. It's great maple syrup. We love it, and it goes great in the cocktail.
I honestly think it just happened naturally. We have maple trees in a sugar shack on our farm, and so we were mapling. And then it was like, well, put it in this, where we're going to store it. And it was like, well, put it in the barrels, right? So it was dumped 10-year barrels that it went into. And it sits in there for up to 6 months, right? Depending on the time of the year and whatnot. And then we bottle it. And I tell people all the time, this is single farm, grade A, Vermont maple syrup finished in rye barrels. It's okay if you don't like it. But if you don't like it, then you probably just don't like maple syrup. Right. I don't know. It's just not
they're used to log cabin.
It's just not your thing. Right. And, but it is just a little bit goes a long way. One of my favorite stories about the maple syrup, though, is that, I give bottles away and mini bottles away, and chef friends of mine, that love it. And a story from a couple of years ago is a chef buddy of mine goes, so we're at brunch. Okay. And we're sitting there, and my son, who's 4, looks up and goes, "Daddy, syrup," right? And it was a bottle of 10-year, and I was like, oh, "We're training that eye, man. Training those eyes, because he's used to, having it on his pancakes at home when Daddy makes pancakes." So it's just.
Well, let's just hope he doesn't. Let's just hope he doesn't grab a bottle of 10-year and pour it on his pancakes.
This is true. This is true. Hopefully Daddy keeps that stuff above.
Yes.
And, we're doing the same thing I'm sure you're doing, Trevor, and locking a bunch of stuff up right now. So, but yeah, it's special stuff. It was just, by default. And now the Sugar Shack has been turned into a tiki bar. and we actually, it's outfitted. I'll pat myself. That was my idea. But yeah,
you know,
it's really,
I know you don't know this, but many of our members may know this if you follow me on social media. I am a tiki file, as we call ourselves. I had a tiki bar in my backyard. I collect tiki mugs. So this is just more incentive for me to come visit the farm if you're telling me there is a tiki bar at the Whistle Pig farm.
in a sugar shack where the maple trees actually dump the syrup, the molasses go into. So yeah, and it's legit. We had like an artist come out and do a whole wall, and it's got
I am genuinely, I was interested before. Now I am looking at flights to Vermont next week.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty
cool. Do you have a favorite? Sorry, you've kind of
thrown you off a little bit.
Thrown me off a little. I got too excited. Do you have a favorite tiki drink that you with Whistle Pig in it?
Oh man, I'd be lying to tell you that I'm a huge tiki guy like you are.
Okay, it's all good.
No, I'm a Mai Tai. I'm a painkiller guy, but I'm like a 2 tiki drink, and then I'm like, okay, I feel my left foot going numb, and I gotta stop, right? But the maple syrup for maple leafs, maple old fashions. We do sell the stuff on the website. I'm not trying to be the syrup salesman tonight or anything like that, but it is for sale, and it's pretty delicious stuff. But you can use it anytime you use sugar in a cocktail. You just use a bar spoon of it, and
on the topic of shameless self-promotions, if you want to go try it in a cocktail, go to Eureka and order a Tipsy Pig Old Fashioned.
There you go.
So I do have a few more questions for you before we get to the Q&A from the audience. So we've kind of talked about already, obviously the sole focus on rye. You guys source from Alberta still for 10-year, and some of the whiskeys are sourced through MGP in Indiana, and then some of the stuff is estate made, right? You guys are making whiskey on site now. Like, what's the rhyme or reason on what's sourced from where, what gets made on site, and then is there any plans to is Whistle Pig? I know Dave was very passionate about rye. Like, do you ever see Whistle Pig making a bourbon or any other type of whiskey outside of the rye category?
Well, to start with and great question, right? The rhyme or reason, think about it this way, was the sourcing is because we weren't going to start by, every business model is different, right? We had our access, and we did a couple rounds of funding to secure as much rye as we have. And that's why we have the 10 years and the 12 years and the 15s and the 18s and all those things, right? But the goal was always to be a grain to bottle distillery, right, as well. And so when you look at farm stock, which we're in our 3rd edition, and the 003 is actually going to be removed from the label. So if you do love farm stock and you're a collector, just know that any bottle that's got a 003 on the middle, like right there, that'll be coming off, and it will just be farm stock rye, right? But it will be still the same blend of our 3-year rye, right, at 52%, because 51 is a minimum, and we always try to go a little further than that. So we've been doing this. This is the third edition. This is the 4th year. We did home stock last year, which was crowdsourced, which was really cool. It had wheat and barley and rye, and it was only 45% rye. So it was kind of the first jaunt into doing something that was not a 95 or 97 or 100% rye. And I can talk about it now because it's out in the open, but we have Beyond Bonded. We have our first ever 100% Whistle Pig Farm rye from our farm, distilled on property, aged in oak from our farm, and like all of our whiskeys, diluted with water from our farm. There's not many barrels to go around. There's 14 and 16. We did do a bourbon as well, right?
Wow.
It is bonded. If you don't know, and I'm sure most of you on here do, 4-year minimum. We went past that. 100 proof, 100.1. So it's beyond bonded. We've got upwards of 35 to 40 different speaking points on each individual, and it's single barrel. Okay. So
I'm like looking for a pen so I can write this down so I can follow up with Blaine to get some bottles.
you can look at the type of rye that was in the field. You can look at the soil type. We can give you the rainfall in that year. The team at the distillery that was working when that barrel was put into the barrel. The barrel date, the bottle date, the place in the rick house. I mean, literally every little detail is going to be available in a QR code on the bottle. There's going to be an annual release of that. This is the first go round. The first barrel of the rye actually went to Mecum last month, and we were trying to generate some money for Farm Aid, and we said we were going to match up to a certain amount, and it actually went for $46,000 on Mecum, and it was the first barrel.
Wow.
It was barrel 0001, and then we matched all the way up to $100,000. So $100,000 went to Farm Aid through Mecum to help small farmers all over the country and all over the world to obviously, do great fun things like we're trying to do and be innovative and keep the lights on and all those things. So there's more to come. I can tell you that. We've got the farm stock with that 003 is coming off. We've got road stock that's coming out. It's actually hit a couple different markets. It was finished on the road, literally, like in an 18-wheeler filled with barrels, and drove from all the way to California to Arizona, up and down and all around, and a Hellcat that running off our distillate.
So it's like you have like ocean age whiskey, which they say rocks the whiskey and imparts more flavors on the barrel. So this is a road finished whiskey. Right.
This just went up and down the 405. Right. So just think of all the stop and go, but also just
I like your California reference. Thank you.
Hey, I'm trying. I've been there. I've said that before. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, heck, it's the same thing here in Texas. It's I-35. So
you even said the before the 405, which is a very California thing. So
I'm trying, man. I told you 104 segments in 19. I travel a lot. I try to get the lingo down too. It helps. It helps. Try to fit in with the locals.
Right? Yeah, that's cool. No, that sounds awesome, and I'm super excited to try the first bourbon. Right, first bourbon ever made by Whistle Pig. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
So you're saying that's already hit the market, or that has been announced, but it's going to hit the market?
It's shipping probably later this month. So look for it definitely in July in California and nationwide.
Awesome.
It's going to be really hard to get your hands on. I'm not going to sit here and try and sugarcoat anything. I mean, I know that there's so California's number one. Where I'm at is Texas is number 2 market in the world for Whistle Pig. And I know there's less than 100 bottles coming to Texas of each one. Right. So.
All right. Well, I will try my best to convince Blaine, my Whistle Pig rep, to give me some bottles. But
Blaine, take care of Trevor. He's not home anymore. He's in New Mexico at a dinner. But
yeah. Cool. So Doug, we have about a little more than 5 minutes here. I want to get to some questions from the audience. D. Scott, first of all, yes, I know about Strongwater, great tiki bar in Anaheim. Thank you for the recommendation, but went to their grand opening, so I'm familiar with that. But we had some questions, obviously, about the Whistle Pig. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll up here really quick to get them. Joe Dominguez wants to know what you see the vision like carrying on Dave's legacy. What do you want Whistle Pig to be known for? Like, what is your mark on the company?
My mark or our mark on the?
I guess his question is what do you want Whistle Pig to be known for?
Well, our mission statement is to be the best premium whiskey brand on the planet. That's always and forever been what we've set out to be and who we were trying to replicate. So at the end of the day, that is the goal. On the side of what I want is I just want to respect the category. I want to respect everything that we've built, because it literally was brick by brick. We always talk about, building the plane as we fly it. or steering an aircraft carrier. It's crazy to do what we've done. I mean, when I started, we only had 10-year, right? And then we started with some boss hogs, and then one thing led to another, and it took 3 years for 12, and it took 2 years, and I was part of the development team for 15, and it's just continuing to drive premiumization, drive innovation, and have fun as hell every day. I mean, Dave lived and breathed this category, this industry. He loved every bartender. He loved every person he ever met. But more importantly, he had a blast doing it, and he went out having a blast. And so if we can all just kind of take a step back every once in a while and remember that we're out talking and selling and drinking great spirits and just having a good time, that's the legacy that I feel like we all should carry on, that Dave would want.
Beautiful. That's awesome, Doug. Thank you. I'd be disappointing our members if I didn't ask you something about Boss Hog on this call, but I'll leave it to Eric Anderson, who asked, what is your favorite Boss Hog and why?
Loaded question. It's like children. You can tell, I could tell you why I like each one individually. But my
you got to pick. Gun to your head, Doug. Come on, gun to your head.
Gun to my head, right? And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to drink this bottle. Okay? Like, try to find the bottom of it. Number 5, Spirit of Mauve, right? It was 13-year plus whiskey, finished in Calvados French apple brandy. It was the last one. I saw Dave and gave him a hug and told him I loved him in Dallas, Texas, and 2 weeks later he passed at a Boss Hog launch party of Spirit of Mauve. Now, Spirit of Mauve is also, I love 12-year coming from wine. I love the soft elegance and the balance and the finishes of it. So it's very much a elevated, on steroids 12-year, because it's ad proof and finished in Calvados, which just really it's like a warm apple pie sitting in grandma's window. It just and it's incredible to drink, and I can drink it and drink it and drink it and drink it and get scared, right? Drinking it. So many of the other, Black Prince put Boss Hog on the map. I mean, that one is a special one because of the obvious. And
I haven't had it, I'll be honest with you,
and Samurai Scientist, I think is so much of a download to talk about that I won't get into it, but just know that like it really is one of the most complex, wicked whiskeys we've ever put out there. And Magellan's Atlantic, I mean, I didn't get to try it on anybody. I had friends and family in the neighborhood coming over, and I got my sample bottle, and I'm like, here, try this. And they're like, I don't even know what to say. And I was like, I think that's good. I think that's good. But what I can tell you, because I know if you are interested in Boss Hog, you want to know, Magellan's Atlantic is, what is currently the release, right? Boss Hog number 7. And it was double finished. It's the oldest that we've ever done at 17 years. Well, as I always reference, if you remember the show, if you're smarter than a 5th grader, Magellan was the first to circumvent the globe. So he didn't go from Spain to South America and stop, right? So the next release is going to be Magellan's Pacific.
Well, and that'll be 8.
That's 8. The Ocho. You
Nice.
get that reference.
Yes. We have a couple more questions here for you. Some Danielle wants to know. Danielle Klein wants to know if she wanted to order more of these old-fashioned little syrup packets. Is that something you guys sell on the website or Amazon or?
I think we're about to go far and wide with it, right? It's still in test market kind of ideas, but let's be real. That's our maple syrup with a little bit of flavoring, and it could be sold anywhere in the world because it's not got booze in it. So I think of it as like perfect for tailgating and perfect for, when you could drink on planes, right? You could just bring one of these and just,
Yeah.
You could Gary Reagan it, and just stir your own cocktail. So, at the end of the day, it will be readily available. I don't know if all the flavors are going to survive. I love the ginger and the orange. I'm in Texas, and so the smoke doesn't do as much for me because we Texans smoke our meat with wood. So anytime I see liquid smoke into a dish, I'm always like, man, you could have just smoked it. But they're going to be available. Yeah, they'll be out there.
Awesome. All right, Doug. Well, we are at the hour mark, and I just wanted to thank you very much again for your time. It was a pleasure to hear your insight about WhistlePig and the industry and future things to come. And I know our members absolutely love these things. So I hope one day, whether I'm in Texas or you're out here in California, we can meet for a drink. And just thank you again. And I hope you have a great night.
No, thank you. And thank you all for joining. Cheers. And maybe we'll grab a dram off the 405 one day.
Well, cheers to Dave, right?
Cheers.
Well, let's do one last cheers to Dave. Cheers. Thank you again.
Thank you. Good night.